Thanks for joining Bible Prophecy Insights. We're glad you're here. Today, Pastor Steve will be talking about the Tower of Babel and its impact on biblical and prophetic history. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, this is Pastor Steve. This series of Bible Prophecy Insights will take a look at prophecies concerning world empires from the past, and then, in current civilization, what points to the final global empire of the Antichrist, which will be followed by the eternal kingdom of Jesus Christ. The history of the world and its nations are interwoven with Bible prophecy. God has a plan, and Satan has his opposition. Let's take a look at God's overall plan from Psalm 2. I'm going to be reading from verses 1 and 2. Why do the nations rage and the people plot a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, then verse 3, let us break their bonds in pieces and cast away their cords from us. God's answer, verses 7 and 8, I will declare the decree the Lord has said to me, you are my son. Ask of me, and I will give you the nations for your inheritance, and the ends of the earth for your possession. We go back to the book of Genesis, beginnings, to find where this conflict started between God and Satan over humanity. Of course, the Garden of Eden, and then Satan's temptation of Adam and Eve, who had been created by God, the fall, and then God's promises of redemption. Today, I want to take a look at Genesis chapter 10 and chapter 11 concerning the origin of the first world empire that came after the great flood. In Genesis 10, verse 8, we find the leader of this first great world empire after the flood. His name is Nimrod. He's called a mighty hunter before the Lord. Now, the way that's worded can mean that he's against the Lord. In other words, he's in rebellion against God. And he's hunting and gathering together not only animals and food, but men to form up his army. And then he decides to build a city. And the people gathered together in the land of Shinar. We also know this in history as Sumer, or the Sumerians. And they built the city of Babel and several other cities. And Babel became the headquarters of this rebellion against God. Then in chapter 11, we find that they are planning to build a great tower whose top will reach into heaven. This is found in Genesis 11:4. Now, what does that expression mean? Well, they were in rebellion because God had told them in Genesis 9:1 to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. But instead, they wanted to build this empire and stay together, united in an evil purpose and disobeying what God wanted them to do. So the top reaching into heaven can have the meaning of rebellion against God and exalting themselves in pride and making their own plans. In other words, man-centered instead of God-centered. Now, this was ultimately inspired by Satan. Satan wants to bring about disobedience. He brings about deception and causes world leaders, in many cases, to build their nations, to build their kingdoms and empires apart from the will of God. So here we have a prototype in Genesis chapters 10 and 11 of such an empire. God did not ignore this. God came down. He took a look what's going on. Of course, he knew everything already. And he decided on his plan to confuse their languages. And once he did that, they couldn't understand each other, so they gathered by language and became scattered. So the Lord scattered them to make the origin of nations. And this in the Bible, in true Bible history, lets us know why so many nations speak different languages, and God's plan has been individual nations. Or in other words, independent nations or different countries, so that the world could not be united in evil purpose at that time. Now, in modern times, we have globalism. the plan to unite the world into some kind of new world order or world government. Now, to summarize, we have here an example of a satanic empire overthrown by God and results in the name Babel, which becomes Babylon, there in Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, that is a symbol of evil government or evil empires throughout history, and turns up in Revelation chapters 13, 17, and 18 as Mystery Babylon, the Antichrist empire of the end times. Next time, I'll be talking about the prophesied empires from Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome, and their relevance to modern times. Until then, remember, Jesus is the true King of the nations.
Thanks for watching. We hope you'll join us for each video in this series. If you haven't, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and share with your friends. Till next time, bye-bye.